Old Yogi's was probably the original craft beer bar in this town.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
And then the Tap came along.
Mm-hmm.
And then Scotty's always had a lot of beer. Well, I think we're still actually the second most taps after the Tap now.
Yogi's.
In town at the original Yogi's.
Huh.
Yeah, 30 taps.
Better get ready, because here comes another great episode of the No Dishes Podcast. Season 6 is brought to you by Visit Bloomington. Check them out at visitbloomington.com. Play that theme song.
Hey, say, honey, let's go out to eat. Relieve our culinary duties. With all these restaurants to sweep us off our feet, they're bound to turn us into foodies. No dishes, no dishes, no dishes. We'll have a bottle of wine, relax and have a good time. No dishes, no dishes.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you there. We're just reading the Bloom food issue, their first ever food issue. Go check it out if you haven't. They also just came out with their new home issue. Good stuff, our friends over at Bloom Mag. But yeah, I'm here with Chris Martin, we got a presidential episode today.
Oh,
president of Finney Hospitality Group. Chris, thanks for being here, buddy.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we've talked for a while about doing it. We grabbed some lunch. We're like, dude, let's get you on the pod. Let's talk all things tap, social, SmokeWorks, Yogi's, and there's some other little things thrown in there as well, right?
Yeah, we do a few other side projects for sure. I mean, we're doing catering probably at a higher level than we ever have all across the state. And we have an express car wash in Columbus, Indiana called Kind, which is an adventure for sure.
Yeah, what's that like running a restaurant group and then you're like, well, we got this car wash too?
Yeah, I mean, car washes are a service, and the whole intention was to have a business that wouldn't really be negatively affected by the next pandemic. That'll surely come around at some point, and car wash is kind of where we landed. I'm that guy who gets his car washed every single day anyway, so I'm the nightmare of crew car wash. But we did a bunch of research. We traveled all across the United States looking at car washes, and Nathan and I just were like, we're smarter than this. We can figure it out. And Nathan and Audrey created the brand and and the character and the name and the color palette and the whole 9 yards is from scratch.
No way. I had no clue.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's pretty amazing. One of the things that, the building we built and the technology we use and what it is pretty spectacular, but the brand is really cool. The brand is something that we could take anywhere and that it resonates with people. And, it's be kind and be kind to your car, be kind to nature. We reclaim a ton of water. We have solar panels on the roof. So we're trying to use the earth to power the mission. And, but we use hospitality every day. I think that's one of the things that sets us apart. We don't wave at you while you're going through. We actually talk to you and visit you out in the vacuum bay, which are free, and provide window cleaner and microfiber towels and a mat cleaner and just a personal approach to it. And it's made a big difference. I mean, we're doing great in the city of Columbus, and hope to grow that brand as we move forward. But it's a big investment. But I think we've been about 18 months now. We've figured it out. We are having a ton of success and a lot of fun for sure. And it is a lot different than the restaurant business, but it is very similar as well. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things you got to figure out. So it's been fun.
Yeah, that gives me a whole new appreciation, because I remember when Nathan had first shared that on Facebook, and I'm like, oh, this is awesome. But it does not look like a brand you just came up with. What an incredible... It looks like, they bought in to a chain that I'd never heard of out of wherever. Right. But that was completely wrong. The thing that I thought was cool, you didn't mention it, but you mentioned a lot of things I didn't know, which are awesome. Probably more cool, but it's the conveyor belt.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not a chain like most express car washes are. It is a conveyor belt, which... allows us to do more. You can do a dually pickup truck that's powered by Cummins, that's built in Columbus, Indiana.
Way to
and so if Cummins, you're out there and you want to get a fleet going or something like that. But car wash has taught us a lot about picking the right spot. I mean, I think Nathan already crushed that. Hard corners everywhere we're at, and every restaurant has an awesome location. But when we were out looking for a car wash spot, I mean, there are details upon details upon specifics upon details that you're really looking for that's going to correlate into a very successful car wash. And Columbus was one of those cities, and I drove through it one day and pulled into the parking lot of the old Kroger and sent pictures and details, and it was just kind of serendipitous that it all came together, and we were able to buy a piece of property in Columbus and build this car wash. And yeah, I mean, I remember a lot of interesting conversations about what we should name it, and then how that was going to evolve. And we knew going in, doing water reclamation is a big part of being successful in this business, because water is your largest expense monthly, as crazy as it is. And we knew we could do other things. And Columbus is very obviously architecturally driven, so that building, our building's very architecturally driven. It has a very unique, specific look, much different than what you're used to in express car washes in Indiana. And I think the word kind just resonated with how we wanted to approach how we were going to take care of your car, how we're going to take care of the environment, and how we're going to take care of you as a regular customer. And it's pretty cool. And yeah, Nathan and Audrey put in the work and spent, I'm sure, some long hours with interesting conversations about how that brand was going to come together. But it's that, I think that's, again, one of the strong points with people is that they, it's very memorable.
Yeah. Oh, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, just the logo. It's like the car. Well, you've got the water
Sudsy.
drop.
Sudsy. That's Sudsy.
Sorry, I didn't know Sudsy's name. I apologize.
That's Sudsy. Sudsy's great.
Do I remember seeing like a car that had like the headlights were like eyes too, or am I just making that up?
Sure. I'm sure you did.
You're like, let's get back to Sudsy, the real thing.
Yeah, but Sudsy can be whoever you want him to be. He's St. Patrick on St. Patrick's Day. He's Kris Kringle on Christmas, and we do a lot of. We're working hard to try to have a really strong philanthropic piece there as well. So we just did a few weeks ago a philanthropic thing that, as people drove through, part of their wash expense was going to go to it, and then they could donate cash too. And I'll be there Thursday. We're presenting a $1,000 check to a local charity, and it's pretty cool. So it's it's a way to give back and be a part of your community, which I think is lost on a lot of people. But right. We want it to be an important part of who we are and everything we do. Yeah, that's great. I was talking to Jeff. He was our most recent episode, Jeff Meese. I was like, man, because every now and then we're a higher price point for ice cream, but it's homemade. It's 14% butterfat. It's a higher end product. But I was like talking to him, I was like, man, if I've been tempted to just put out like a list of these are all the organizations we've donated to in the last year. It's got to be over 200. It's a lot. And he's like, no, he's like, but you don't, he's like, you don't need to. He's like, the big people do, like you're a chain, like or like you're a locals place. You don't need to do that. People, they in the Bloomington community, they know. Right. They're at those silent auctions. They see that happening. You don't need to put out a, whoa, look at us kind of post. So I'm glad he kind of talked me down from that. Yeah, I mean, and I love Jeff. Obviously, Jeff. When I see Jeff bopping down the street, I always holler his name and enjoy a good conversation because I think he goes about things the right way. Yeah. And I love Lenny too. I mean, Lenny and I actually serve on a committee together at the Indiana Restaurant and Lodging Association. Oh, awesome. So, okay. And always fun to kind of share and understand what's going on. But I will tell you, in some ways, you're promoting that organization that you've donated something to. That's as true. Well. Yeah. So I get where Jeff's coming from, like no reason to beat your chest, but at the same time, those organizations are important to our community again. Yeah. You're highlighting them as well. That makes sense. Yeah. So, and some of them really need our support, right? So no matter how small or how big they are. Oh, absolutely. Well, they run the gamut. You've got these very niche, like IU student organizations. You have these large community boys and girls club, things that have been around forever. Everyone knows them, but it's all over the place. The one last thing I had, at least I think for the Kind Car Wash, I remember going through, it was a Mike's car wash in Carmel before his crew. Right. And my second car, I'm just going to go rabbit trail here, was a 2003 Hyundai Tiburon GT, 6-speed catback exhaust, but it was lowered on coilover suspensions. I didn't know better, and I tried going through, and it like scraped. Didn't do well. So hard, and it went through,
but it scraped getting on, and I'm just like, it was one of the more embarrassing moments in my life, which that says something. I've been done quite a few embarrassing things. So that also, not only the dualies, but if you're sitting low, you're going to do much better on.
Yeah, I mean, that's yes. I mean, I think the equipment we chose allows us to do almost every single car. But there are still some limitations, and your car still has to be enough off the ground that it has some clearance for some access points that we have.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, these things run over a tunnel. Basically, they're in a tunnel, but they run over another ditch or tunnel that is collecting all that water, and it has a lot of the mechanical components and things like that. So you got to get into that somehow. So it's again, what you don't see would blow your mind.
I bet. I mean, car washes are so fast. Do you have any idea, like the amount of volume of water you go through it in a month? Or I know you said your largest expense. Because every time I go through a car wash, I'm like, man, like just the ins and outs of how those things work.
Yeah, not for sure. So I wouldn't want to quote it because somebody out there smarter than me would probably Carrie, who runs my wash, would probably be like, that's nowhere near right. But I will tell you that, you know, every drop of water we use goes through the reclamation process.
Okay.
And about 80% of it gets pushed back through the wash. So it doesn't do well with the chemicals that we use, but it does really well when there's nothing added to the wash. So a lot of high pressure water or water that's used to rinse and clean the equipment itself or the wash, we're using 100% reclaimed water.
Wow.
So, you know, every gallon over time gets used more and more and more. So I think we did say we get about 138, 140% of every gallon of water we get out of it.
Okay, yeah.
So we get another 38, 40% usage out of it. Yeah, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, huge. I know I heard a guy, this was maybe a year or so ago, it was when we had our location on Indiana Avenue. And he was a Kelly School student, but he had worked for Crew Car Wash all through high school. And they had him like tasked with finding another Bloomington location. And then I heard that they bought the KFC and the Taco Bell there on East 3rd.
Right.
And that I think he was behind that. I was like, he scooped some ice cream for us. And they finally found the magical perfect spot on 3rd Street.
Should be an interesting location. I mean, there's not if you're out there looking for land or retail opportunities in Monroe County or the city of Bloomington, you will appreciate how unique that opportunity was.
Oh, sure. I bet. Yeah. I was telling Lovey when Joe Ellis was going out, I was like, dude, like let's put a chocolate mousse there. We could have a drive through like we do in Brown County. And it's like, dude, the amount of money, just that land cost, let alone doing a building, doing it like how you need it done. So of course a bank bought it. Which checks it.
Of course.
Yeah. It's like we can't ice cream banks. We can't really compete. We're not on the same playing field.
Yeah. When you're out there looking at real estate, like real estate developers love banks because they have great credit.
Yeah.
I mean, they're giving themselves their money.
Weird.
Right?
Yeah.
They're using your money to build a bank branch. So, yeah.
All right. Well,
who would have thought we were going to talk about car washes?
I know for the first 15 minutes, curveball, car washes. What's up? All right. Well, let's talk.
It's just a short drive to Columbus. Like you can drive through Brown County. I mean, it's the perfect time of year in the fall when your car really needs a wash.
Yeah.
So come see us. It's say you're from Bloomington, and we'll give you the Bloomington kind care to your car.
Oh, yeah. And if you start to get a little tired on the drive out, you stop at the chocolate in Brown County.
See? Double.
Wham. If you're not making this road trip, what are you doing?
Exactly.
We actually looked before we went to Nashville about doing a chocolate mousse in Columbus.
It's a really cool city.
Yeah.
You know, I know the guys at Upland obviously have a really cool location and do well.
The pump house, the Morvex did an incredible job remodeling that whole space.
It's a beautiful spot.
Oh, you go in there and it's copper pipes and all
crazy.
That. Yeah. Good amount of money, but it's to our benefit. You can go in there, enjoy good beer, some good food, and it's a nice little ambiance. How much are you paying for your restaurant's business insurance? What's affordable for your needs? What does your agent do for you that isn't just policy writing? Tony Brown with First Insurance Group has a keen eye for the policies all restaurant owners and operators would love to have. Tony provides risk management and other HR resources free of charge as your agent. Tony has no waiting period for loss of business coverage starting from day one, minute one, unlike other carriers' 72-hour waiting period. Tony has no audit for liquor liability and general liability, saving you time so you can focus on running your restaurant. And Tony's insurance carrier is the preferred vendor of choice for the Indiana Restaurant and Lodging Association. Call or text Tony Brown with First Insurance Group today, 812-327-2321. Set up a free review of your current policy and see how Tony can help you protect your largest investment, your business. 812-327-2321. You guys, let's go back to the beginning of Finney Hospitality Group when it was just the tap,
right?
And it was beer only. There wasn't even a kitchen. What kind of walk us through that timeline?
Yeah, so I wasn't part of the group. I was actually in Bloomington at the time, working at Handpin Marketing for Pat East. So we mentioned Pat there on the cover of Bloom.
Oh, sorry, I was
Bloom magazine.
Working for this guy. What up, Pat East?
At Hannepin, and I read in the newspaper that somebody was opening this craft beer only bar at the old Talbots, and I'm like, I got to go meet this guy, right?
Yeah.
And so that was my first interaction with Nathan, and his mission and sort of his business plan was pretty solid because other people were doing it down in bigger cities, especially down in Florida, and just craft beer. And his vision more than anything was the fact that he really loved craft beer, and he loved the fact that there were a lot of different craft beers you could try and seasonality, and you just never run out of options, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing is in Bloomington, Indiana, you couldn't get great service. Like, his story was you could have $100 bill in your hand and you still couldn't get a drink, right? And so he was going to change that when you walked into his bar, you were going to get acknowledged, you were going to get immediately greeted, and you were going to be walked through whatever experience you want with craft beer. And for a year and a half, that's all it was. Craft beer. And you could get food delivered in, obviously.
I remember. I'd have Jimmy John's delivered.
Perfect. And he had good relationships, but people kept saying, hey, you got to do your own food. You're out to do your own food. But at that time, it's not an exaggeration that Nathan was pouring every beer, washing every glass, and making sure that every beer was a perfect beer. And, the thought of him starting a kitchen or anything, I think was just overwhelming to him right at the time. Because his background wasn't restaurants. It was finance and investment and mortgages and things like that. But he's a salesperson. He was a salesperson, right? Just an awesome salesperson. And that's a big piece of who we are today and where it started. And he finally, gave in and put a kitchen in the basement, which is about the size of a food truck, just a little smaller than this desk. And we just recently expanded it, and it's still not a whole bunch larger than this desk, and crushed it. A couple burgers, some appetizers, pizzas, and the creation of tap fries, obviously. And as the story goes, just the process of coming up with the 19 ingredient seasoning that goes on a tap fry was classic Nathan, right? Like, I want it to be perfect. I'm going to try as many combinations as possible. Go to every inch of the earth to figure out how to make these fries unique and different. And still to this day, I think people try to imitate that seasoning, but you're never going to do it.
But 19 is the number.
Yeah.
Okay. So more than KFC, but less flavors than Dr. Pepper.
Pretty good.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. It's pretty, it's pretty crazy. We actually have it made for us now because obviously we've grown some, and the process of finding someone to make it and have it match was a 2-year process.
Really?
It's just not that simple.
There was a guy he makes out of Columbus who did like the Nick's hot sauce.
Oh yeah.
And he had some relation. There was these ladies out of Columbus that had this thing called 240 Sweet. And they did these gourmet marshmallows. They came to our original Food Truck Fridays at the old stand. And they did these like frozen hot chocolates with their homemade like marshmallow whip and torched it. And it was so good. Yeah. And they were super nice. They ended up on an episode of The Prophet with Marcus Lemonis.
Oh, wow.
Do you watch that show? Yeah. I love that show. And they went on that show, and it was like one of their dads had this warehouse that did all these spices and seasonings. And Marcus is like, you can't be doing gourmet marshmallows in the same room as all these spices and seasonings. Yeah. And then I found out that they made the Nick's hot sauce. And it's a crazy episode if you haven't seen it, but you'll appreciate it. Obviously, you're in Columbus quite a bit. I think might be the only Indiana Prophet episode, but
interesting.
Anyway, yeah, sorry, I'm rabbit trailing a lot, but
so it's probably not going to be hard to do today. So then maybe they were about probably only about 6 months into actually doing their own food that he was, Nathan was already trying to figure out like, hey, I need to stay ahead of the curve here, right? And I need to, this brand needs to be even more than it already is. It's got a great beer selection. It's got live music. We're doing trivia. The food's really good. Getting rave reviews about the food because the food's not what you expect at a bar, right? It's better. A lot of it is made from scratch. The beer cheese is to die for, and just little details again. And so he was like, hey, I'm going to brew my own beer. And he went on this mission to find a brewer and really kind of a nationwide search and found Jared May, our brewer from Iron Hill out east and in Pennsylvania, a phenomenal brand and a phenomenal company in its own right. And Jared is a culinarian by schooling, but while he was at Iron Hill as a chef, a kitchen guy, said, hey, I want to learn how to brew beer, and it's really kicked off. And the success our brewery has had is, for the size we are and that we don't wholesale, you can't find us at Kroger's, you can't find us at Big Red, right? We only really sell to ourselves. I don't think there's another brewery in Indiana that has been acknowledged from a metal standpoint out there in not only local, state, but regional and nationwide competitions. We've killed it. Yeah. It's been great. So, that evolution of the tap really makes it something that's hard to find. The fact that you can go watch sports, you can have a business meeting, you're there for lunch, you can play trivia a couple nights a week, you can watch some live music, you get snacks or a full meal. You can try any of our beers, and then of course there's 30 to 50 other guest beers at any one time that you can try, and it's just a pretty cool deal. And we have 4 of them now. So we're in Bloomington, then on what I call the sort of the heart or the start of Mass Ave, at the corner of New York and Delaware in downtown Indianapolis. We're in basically the heart of campus of that school up north.
West something or other.
Yeah, on the Wabash. It's that school on the Wabash. And then we, in December, something really cool. We, through a partnership, we have a tap in the Indianapolis airport, something that Nathan worked on for probably 7 years.
That's crazy.
To get the thing to come to fruition, and just a really cool spot in the gate, B gate, where Southwest Airlines loads, and it's been fun too. So the tap has been a great ride, and we're going to continue to ride it, hopefully grow it as well. And we're excited about it.
Yeah. I feel like that's the heart of Finney Hospitality Group, because it's where it all started. It's like, here's the tap. Everything else in social has been doing amazing in its own right. I know you mentioned events, catering. Ashton, I think, is spearheading a lot of that. But at the end of the day, it all kind of comes back to the tap when you look at the story of Finney Hospitality Group.
Oh, 100%. And it's still, to me, I will tell you that, when it opened, and I wasn't working for Nathan. We had met, we had stayed in touch, we had talked shop, but that's where I went before a game. Yeah. Almost every game. And honestly, because you could go there and get food before a game, right? You never was like, no, we're backed up, or no, you can't, you're not going to have enough time. You could get to the tap, you could get some fries and some other stuff to snack on and a couple of beers and still get to the game without a problem. So, I became a regular. Like, if I came back to Bloomington at the time I was living in Indianapolis, we always went to the tap. Tap was on the list, right? So, as a fan favorite, if you will, it was pretty cool when Nathan and I started talking about me, joining the team.
Yeah, especially getting the fried green beans, that beats the hell out of getting some popcorn or a hot dog at the stadium.
100%.
It's a little cheaper, a little more flavorful.
Definitely a better product. Definitely a better product.
Walk me through how you kind of came on board then. You mentioned it.
Yeah, so, previous to working for Nathan, I was working at Scotty's Brewhouse. I was the president of Scotty's Brewhouse the last 2.5 years most of its last 2.5 years of its existence, and Really was just talking to Nathan a lot as a friend, actually. Just, hey, this is some interesting things going on, and obviously he was very successful at the Tap and a restaurant and a brand that we were looking at, even at Scotty's. I'm like, hey, that's our competition, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And just a short walk from the Tap was Scotty's. The number 2, the second Scotty's that had been around for 15 years and a very successful Scotty's. Very, very well ran.
Was the first one in Muncie?
Muncie,
okay,
yeah. In the villages of Muncie, and then they got that spot in Bloomington with the Stolbergs, who built that garage and then leased it back to the city. So
okay, yeah,
another great developer in this town. And
I love Stoli. I didn't know they built that one. That's cool.
Yeah, so they're our landlord there. So Nathan and I were talking, and he obviously had the 2 taps at that point, and the first social cantina there on the square in Bloomington had been open just a few months, and he was like, we should do this. Like, you should come work for me, and we've got other things going on. And
that was after Scotty's had closed, and you were on to Hannafin?
Scotty's, no. So Hannafin predated Scotty's several years.
Gotcha.
I worked at Hannafin with Pat. I think they've been around. He'd been around maybe 4 or 5, 6 years. I think I went to work for Pat. We had maybe 11 people, and when I left, we had 50.
Jeez.
And so I was the director of people and culture, and really just used, again, that hospitality background. Pat East is probably one of the biggest foodies in town.
Oh, yeah.
If you didn't know that.
Absolutely.
And, he can tell you where to go get the best, whatever it is in town.
He hit me up a couple of weeks ago for a food rec in Nashville, and I was honored. I was like, thank you. Thank you for trusting me with this.
It's a true story. And so I think he may have hired me because he was like, hey, here's another, he'll help me pick better restaurants and food and beer and all that stuff.
Even if he's not great at work, we'll at least get good lunches together.
That is true. We did. And I had been in the restaurant business a long time, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But so Nathan and I just kind of came together over the course of a couple months of serious conversations, and I came to work for him early in 2019, and the rest is history. I think the second or third week I was there, we opened SmokeWorks.
Oh, wow. So real quick.
And then later that fall, Scotty's had closed in Bloomington, and we were able to grab that spot. And Nathan had already bought the rights to Yogi's. And so we were able to open Yogi's in that spot, which interesting story. It's not the old Yogi's, which is how I start every conversation with everybody.
That's how I preface everything. When I'm talking, I was like, I like it, but it's not the old Yogi's. As long as you don't compare it to the old Yogi's, you're going to be happy. Better business, better community. For over a century, the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce has been a cornerstone of business growth and community development. They are dedicated to helping local businesses thrive. Their business is all about your business. Join the Chamber today. Call 812-336-6381 or visit chamberbloomington.org to learn more.
It's like chocolate mousse isn't in the hut.
Exactly. And it's not the Penguin. It's going to be a little bit of a different experience.
Yeah, 100%. So, and then we opened and then the pandemic hit. We were about ready to open in West Lafayette, and the pandemic happened, and we put the brakes on that and just put that thing on mothballs for 7 or 8 months. And still opened it in sort of pandemic era, which is I could write a book for sure. And I'll tell you, at the time, Ashton Gibson was running Social Cantina and SmokeWorks here in town, and we really got in a groove in what we were doing and how it was going, and that thing just took off like gangbusters, and other opportunities happened, and now we have 4 Social Cantinas open and a 5th under construction. The first out-of-state Finney Hospitality restaurant down in Nashville, Tennessee.
Wow, that's huge. Have you guys announced that yet?
Yeah, okay. I think we have.
I just wanted to know this is exclusive. It's fine.
I think Nathan announced it when we signed the lease last year.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
And I finally got that thing under construction and super excited about it. It's in Germantown, which is a cool northern suburb, and we're right in the left field of the minor league baseball team, the Sounds, down there in Nashville. And so basically,
what a great minor league team name for Nashville, the Sounds.
Well, their scoreboard's a big guitar.
Oh, is it really?
Their outfield scoreboard's a guitar, and it's right next door to Bicentennial Plaza, where they do the New Year's Eve celebration and all there's always live music activity going on there with the CMA and CMT and all that stuff. So
that's super exciting.
It's a cool location. Yeah, we're excited about it.
Yeah, you're just like, forget Kentucky. We're just going to hop over.
Not hard to do.
Outside of like Louisville, yeah.
It's just an hour and a half of the 4-hour drive.
Yeah, so, exactly. Yeah. So you've got, I know you have one in Carmel. You have one downtown right on Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia and Illinois.
Right across from Harry and Izzy's, right?
Right across from Harry and Izzy's, about 50 yards from the front door of the convention center.
Yeah.
So about 40 yards from the Eiffel Tower on Georgia Street right now for the USA swim trials that are happening starting this weekend.
I just saw they were putting that up. It looks so cool.
It is cool.
And they just put the rings up on the actual Eiffel Tower today, I think.
It's very cool. Matter of fact, we got local Jamie Brenniger. I'm sure you know Jamie Brenniger. You've heard that name. His wife worked for the IU Athletic Department a long time. Their son will be competing for his second Olympics, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay.
This weekend, yeah.
We had a family reach out to about doing like a trial celebration, wanting to do some ice cream, but it wasn't the family. It was like a friend of theirs.
Yeah.
Because they're like, we have to check with the family.
That's
and then we'll get back to you.
Yeah.
But dude, the Lucas Oil, we're going to just keep sidetrailing. I don't care. But Lucas Oil looks so sick. Isn't it the first time they've ever done that as far as a large like NFL stadium for
yeah. I mean, they've obviously built some temporary pools out there in the world, but I don't think they've ever done it to this scale
in a 70,000
with the amount of people that are going to be able to witness the actual event. And it's the early heats are started at 11 a.m. finish about 12:30, 1 o'clock. They come back and do the finals at 8 o'clock.
Wow!
So every day for 9 days, it's an all-day adventure. And perfect time of the year. It's supposed to be in the mid-90s all next week, so it's just going to be sweltering hot in downtown Indianapolis, which is perfect. And Indianapolis, like it always does, will show off. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's Indy Sports Corps and Visit Indy are all over it, and we're excited to be a part of it. We are a part of it by being on Georgia Street and doing a couple special things out on Georgia Street in addition to that restaurant that's right there. And I'm jazzed. It's pretty cool. It's going to be a great summer and fall in downtown Indianapolis for Social Cantina.
Dude, they do such an amazing job hosting sporting events. It's crazy. Just like the national media always just like Final Fours, the one Super Bowl. Yep. It's always just like, Indy nailed it. Even if it's cold, they still nail it every time.
They have Indiana people who want to see Indiana succeed, right?
Yeah.
And have sports somehow in their DNA or gene or background, so they know what they're getting into. And they just do an amazing job of hosting, tens of thousands of people. I mean, it's only going to get bigger because they're building infrastructure to have even more people there for bigger events. And NCAA basketball is coming again right down the pike next year. There's a regional final, and the year after the Final Four again. And things just don't stop happening. Right across the street from us on Georgia Street is going to be the tallest building in Indiana, which will be the largest hotel, a Hilton Signia.
Oh, is that where it's going? I saw like a mock-up. I didn't realize exactly where it was going.
Is how far it is from Social Cantina.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
It's cool.
That'll be good for business.
Probably won't hurt. Probably will not hurt business.
Well, speaking of the unsung heroes in tourism bureau, shout out to Visit Bloomington, our season 6 sponsor. They've been our ride or die for a very long time. How long has the downtown store been open now?
Year and a half, probably.
Okay, and
I think it'll be 2 in September.
Yep, and then Carmel is kind of around there, isn't it?
Carmel's about 6 months older, so it opened in January, and then again at the end of that same year, we opened in Mishawaka. So we opened 3 restaurants and a car wash in 22.
Crazy, just gluttons for punishment.
We were. It was fun.
Okay, so
I mean, it's kind of one of those things. Like Carmel, as an example, we weren't looking in Carmel. We knew of that general location, and then somebody called us, and the developer and the people who own the building we're in are IU grads, and they started talking to Nathan and then me, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is like we should do this."
Yeah, match made in heaven.
And right on the Monon, beautiful, beautiful restaurant, unbelievable patio, and it's an extremely successful restaurant.
I love that. Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, I could see it fitting the vibe. As someone that grew up there, it makes sense.
Yeah, Midtown Carmel's really a neat space.
Yeah, well, I mean, every time I go up there, there's something new being built. It looks different.
Yep.
I grew up when I think I was 6 when Carmel put in their first roundabout. So I got to watch and I was telling you I had a moped I would drive around. I remember going to it was like 1/16th and Spring Mill or something, and always being way backed up. And then they put a roundabout in, and I was always complaining about roundabouts. And then they put one in. I was like, oh, I never have any cars in front of me at this.
Right.
It's just seamless. So ever since then, I've been a big proponent of roundabouts and how efficient they are.
Love-hate relationship.
Really?
On this side.
What's the hate?
That people don't know how to drive through them.
Okay, but that's the people. That's not the roundabout themselves.
That's fair.
You build them and you hope they'll learn. All right.
Yeah, that's another saying.
I'm
not going to comment because we'll talk about that for 20 minutes.
Yeah, well, I think it was even before recording. You're like, yeah, Jordan, you have a lot more faith than I do. All right, so my question, and no shade, but why Mishawaka?
So again, another local developer, Flattery and Collins, great guys. They do a lot of partnerships with municipalities. So this is a partnership with the city of Mishawaka that's going through a huge regentrification in their downtown area. We're right across the street from a brand new city hall, police station. We're right on Lake St. Joe's, or St. Joe's River. I always try to say Lake St. Joe's for some reason, but it's a river, and we're right there. It used to be the Uniroyal steel belt plant in Mishawaka.
Okay,
and we're in a apartment building, and ourselves and Sun King share the first floor retail, and so we're next to Sun King in Carmel, and so it's kind of like we're just going to follow each other around. Was the joke early, but.
Not a bad partnership.
We feel good. We feel good about that. The region, in general. We also think that when you look at it, there's a lot of development that's going to happen, and a lot of redevelopment that's happening in the region. So when we were looking to go somewhere where we could, potentially have another restaurant close, that certainly sort of checked that box off. And again, another cool development that we're a little early to the development. There's a lot of stuff still going on around us, and Mishawaka is going to build a convention center and build some hotels downtown that are going to be literally right next to us as well. So I think the long term of that restaurant will be great, but it already is probably the nicest thing in Mishawaka South Bend, besides Notre Dame's campus.
Right. Yeah.
To be honest with you. So just excited about the development. Again, a local Indiana developer who we think very highly of, and we're excited to be a partner with, because I think that's what moves you ahead now, right? Like what amenities they provide their tenants and the community that they're a part of. City of Mishawaka has been phenomenal. They working very hard. They're extremely business friendly and just have a great relationship. And, we're a little over a year old, still knowing, but getting to know the market getting to know us. But like this summer, we're a partner with the South Bend Cubbies and having a great time going to games and doing some fun stuff there. So it's a cool community.
It sounds like you're set up very well for the long term with, the new hotel downtown, the redevelopment there. Bloomington's obviously just going to keep growing, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I think just a week or two ago, some announcements with the convention center, and I think Bloomington has a huge opportunity, especially like this time of the year when the students aren't here, to be attractive to a lot of pretty significant conventions or users of that facility, right?
Yeah.
And when we see how it's used in like Indianapolis and the amount of revenue that it can bring to a downtown area, I mean, I really think the work has been done, right, in the city of Bloomington to prepare with a number of hotels and the amenities that are in this downtown area. We need a bigger convention center. I'll try not to get political on us, but it's time to put those food and beverage taxes to work, right? And build something and to show for what the businesses in downtown Bloomington, especially as F&B guys, have put forth. Because to be honest with you, I mean, our guests spent that money, right? They paid the taxes
with the understanding that it would be going to a convention center,
right?
Expansion.
And it should. And that's why I think a lot of them still patronize downtown restaurants and whatnot, because they understand the value of that.
Yeah, it's gonna help the restaurants. It's gonna help them. It's gonna help Bloomington continue to be vibrant and to grow. 100%. Yeah, we don't normally get political. I don't think it's political. And if there's one thing, I mean, at this point, it's already been settled. It's been collected, or it should be settled. But I mean, I went a couple months ago with a bunch of the local folks and talked to city council to just be like, hey, what are we holding up here? Like, let's go. Money's been collected. You got the CIB put together. They got the architect selected. I think in the next day or two, they're selecting the construction manager.
Right.
Like, let's go. Let's make this thing happen. We've been waiting. You know, the pandemic already delayed so many things a ton. We should be wanting as a whole to just hit the ground running. The No Dishes podcast is brought to you by visitbloomington.com. VisitBloomington.com is the best resource for restaurant and culinary information, special events, fun activities, places to stay, and more in our area. We share a similar mission here on the No Dishes podcast of highlighting local businesses and the people who make our community unique. We can't thank them enough for hopping on board. Check them out at visitbloomington.com to easily plan your next meal, visit, or night out on the town. Yeah. Anyway, I'm glad we're on the same page. I had a feeling we would be.
Yeah, so did I.
All right, let's talk SmokeWorks. So you guys opened that up. How much longer? That you said a couple weeks after you started.
Yeah, early 2019 and February, I think. And you know, what's crazy is barbecue's hard.
Yeah,
people think it's easy. I thought it was easy, right? Like, and generally speaking, the principle of it's pretty easy. I mean, you start with really good meat, right? And you season it really well and
cook it low and slow.
Just take your time with it, and it's all good after that, right? And just, you know, first of all, SmokeWorks is a much different than a normal barbecue shack, right? It's like if you're looking for Memphis barbecue or Southern barbecue, you're surprised if you're not sitting at a picnic table, right?
Exactly.
And they holler some number out and tell you to come pick up your food.
And that's part of the
charm.
tray.
Yeah, 100%.
Exactly.
That's not what we built.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a fancy, highfalutin barbecue joint, right? With the largest whiskey selection probably in the state of Indiana, and a lot of stuff that you can't find in most restaurants. I mean, a ton of allocated liquor and whiskeys and moonshines and bourbons that we have that other people just don't have.
Yeah.
Single barrel stuff that we've done on our own, and just, you know, an amazing job there. And a really cool bar, you know, in the back part of it. The whiskey bar is just really wicked cool. And
I don't think I've ever sat at a table and smoked. It's always been at the
bar.
Yeah.
It's the best seat in the house.
Absolutely,
for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a great collection of stuff to drink. And that bar was built by a guy named Jay Richardson, local guy who does woodworking here in town. Just killed it. I mean, it's just an amazing, I mean, it's all hand done. It's all that barrel where all the high end stuff is in the middle of that bar. I mean, Jay configured that thing, put it together. It's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, man. Garrett just pulled it up, the SmokeWorks site, and it just reminded me, my favorite thing, I've told you this, is the smoked turkey sandwich.
Yep.
So you think you're getting ribs, you're getting bar. I'm telling you, get the smoked turkey sandwich. come down to the Moose after. Thank me.
Yeah.
You won't be upset. Yeah, it's well, I think I told you too when Finney first told me about that he was going to be doing that. And I was like, dude, I've talked to Lovey for years about how if I did a restaurant, I wanted to do a nice barbecue restaurant downtown. But I was like, at least it's someone good doing it. And I'm many years away from doing my own foray. So it's better late than early than ever, you know?
It's fun. I mean, I think people, you know, people who experience it and are open-minded to like different barbecue, right? That's the other thing we found. Like a hamburger is a hamburger, generally speaking, right? Like whether it's smashed or seasoned or not, or it's got cheese on it or not. I mean, people still eat it pretty much any hamburger. Barbecue, people got a strong opinion about, very strong opinion about, and you know, I think we've learned and evolved that a little bit, and we'll continue to try to sort of mainstream it into more like Indiana barbecue is how I would call what we're going after, and really good sides. And, you know, again, the attitude about just really giving good service is probably the big thing that would set us apart. Because in most barbecue joints, you're not going to look for service.
Right.
You're hoping to get there before they run out.
Exactly.
And that's not where we're at. We're trying to, it's a normal full service restaurant where it's much more of an experience than just barbecue.
Well, you're trying to give them good barbecue without the model of, hey, we're just making this, and when it's out, it's out.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's tough.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that
What's your favorite type of barbecue?
See, I don't. Oh man, I really probably Carolina. Honestly,
Yeah.
I like the vinegar.
Yep.
I like the vinegar based stuff. There used to be a place at 116th and I-69. I can't remember the name of it. It was in that strip mall in the southwest corner. I think there was a Starbucks there, maybe still is, across from Target.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the name, but they still to this day have my favorite barbecue sauce because it was
anymore.
kind of. I know it's not. It hasn't been there for maybe 10 years. And then there was this other place down at like 71st and Benford, a little past where I went to high school, called Black Diamond Barbecue.
Yeah.
They had Bible verses on the menu. Like, if that's not a cue that you're about to get some.
There you go. Southern barbecue right there.
Oh, God. I was like, there's Bible verses on the menu. And it was so good every time.
Yeah.
It was just the great service there. It was, those are, I don't know. See, the style, I'm not a big stylistic, like, I got to have, Texas or Memphis. And I need to travel a little bit more. I mean, I went down to Galveston, flew out of Houston, was around Arlington, or Angleton. And got to try some barbecues down there, but I've never hit Memphis up. I've never been to St. Louis.
Yeah, Memphis is good. I mean, I think the best barbecue I ever had, we were at the Stockyards in Houston, and there was a little barbecue joint, just this big barn. You just walk in the door, and there's like 100 picnic tables, right?
Perfect.
You walk all the way to the back, you put your order in, you walk all the way to the front and sit at the last picnic table, and they holler your number, and you got to walk all the way back to get it again, right? But, fresh white bread and, really strong peppery sauces, but just, meat that had been just loved all day long, right? That's just somebody who showed up every day at 4 a.m. and just got to work.
See, that's the thing. I would love to do barbecue, but man, to do it like that, I'm a sleep baby. I need my sleep. I do a lot. I stay busy, but I need my sleep, and you can't do that with barbecue.
I mean, technology helps you with that. Obviously, you can. I mean, we have a very technologically advanced smoker. I'll say that. So that's probably what keeps us in business too, is the fact that we're able to not have to stand in front of it for 16 hours
the whole night. Yeah. Now, does SmokeWorks share a kitchen with social?
Yeah, so it's really cool. I mean,
how does that work?
It's very unique. There are two buildings that are conjoined, and so SmokeWorks and Social Cantina are in two different buildings. And they both have basements, but they are, conjoined. And in the basement, we share a lot of storage and mechanicals in the office, and where prep happens, and the smoker is down in the basement.
Okay, yeah.
And then on that first street level floor, we share a kitchen, and that kitchen produces two totally different menus, right? And some stuff shared, but not a whole bunch. And one goes out one door and one goes out the other. It's pretty cool. You see it in really, really big cities, right? Like where somebody will have this big space and they'll have two different ideas, and they'll share a liquor license and share a kitchen and kind of figure it out. And that's really when Nathan stood in front of that building, as the story goes, he was like, man, I could probably do two restaurants here. I could probably do a little barbecue joint, and I could do, real tacos.
Yeah. Knock it out.
And the rest is history. And the building just worked, right? Like, that's the cool thing, is it does work. There, still to this day, there are people who are like, we didn't know there were two restaurants here. Or, we didn't know you were the same people. Whatever. And it's like, okay.
Well, if you don't go to the back and see how it crosses over, and you don't kind of look at the party room in between,
right?
You're kind of in your own world. In social, I could see going in there and having no idea that it's connected to smoke.
I mean, they look different, they feel different. We play different music.
Yeah, totally different vibes.
It is unique, but it's very cool. And when you're busy on some of those homecoming Saturdays, the kitchen's definitely, it's my favorite place to be. But that's the day to be there, right? Like, everyone's losing their mind, and somebody will yell something.
Oh God, no!
Like, that's the wrong side of the kitchen. It's like, at this point, it's just all one, right? Like,
at this point, we're doing what we got to do to make it work.
Just get it out. Yeah.
I know you mentioned that, Nathan had bought the Yogi's rights, and Adams, who's one of our owners of the Chocolate Moose, had that.
Yep.
And he had got that because a lot of the Yogi stuff, when it closed, came down to our warehouse.
Yeah.
And I remember I think it was at least a year that they kind of had it and weren't sure what they were doing with it until Nathan bought it.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that's cool. That's awesome. Like, at least it's in good hands.
And we did. And I don't think he knew when he bought it what he would do with it.
Right.
Where it would go, how it would manifest itself. But it was an opportunistic situation, and when I came to work for him, we talked about it. We had some pretty interesting conversations about what it could be and where we might do and how we might use that brand, but there was no plan. I mean, the plan from, hey, that Scotty's is closing Saturday night at midnight to Tuesday signing a lease.
Oh, wow. It was that quick.
And Thursday basically under construction, pulling stuff out of that building and getting rocking and rolling. I think we took it over maybe early September and we opened in November. Yeah, we didn't mess around.
Yeah, that's nuts.
And
opening restaurants never, especially one of that size and scale.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I think maybe we never told a great story. I mean, there's a combination of old Yogi stuff as a part of that menu, right? Like some of the things that people really, beloved about old Yogis from a food perspective. There's Scotty stuff on that menu that's very prominent. That I think people appreciate. And then there's Finney Hospitality stuff, right? Like to add to that component. So from the food perspective, it's a little bit of everything, right? I have the recipe book from the original Yogis. And so we do a lot of that stuff. And then I have the recipe book from Scotty. So we do some of that stuff. And we came up with some of our own stuff that we thought would complement those things. So one of the big differences that it's, Old Yogi's was probably the original craft beer bar in this town.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
And then the tap came along. And then Scotty's always had a lot of beer. Well, I think we're still actually the second most taps after the tap now in town at the original Yogi's. Yeah, 30 taps.
Wow.
So, but craft beer beer's not as big of a deal at the new Yogi's as it was at the original Yogi's.
Oh yeah, because I did the Century Club at the Yogi's. Yeah. My first beer I ever ordered when I was 21 was at Yogi's.
That's great.
My first 2 years in Bloomington, I lived in a house right behind it and then the house right next to it.
Yeah.
And was a regular there, then worked there, then just went back to being a regular. So I've had a lot of fun. That's in the bingo that I still do at bars now. Started there. So it's crazy how much ties I have. I mean, I do the radio show with Glass every week, and his family and Joe, they grew up 100%. Within. I think they met there.
I think they did. Yeah.
So what was that like trying to take such a beloved brand and trying to bring into the new world as something new that would be successful while still appeasing all, because that's got to be almost an impossible task.
Yeah, I mean, luckily it wasn't impossible, but
I said almost.
We're still here. We knew it would not be. We knew we were not going to be old Yogis, right? And we also knew we weren't going to be Scotty's, and we also knew we weren't going to just create something from scratch to put in there. I mean, it's still hard. There are still people who have angst over the fact that the old Yogi's is gone. One of the things that helped is that the old Yogi's is just a beautiful grass lot now. There is no building. So
right, where the whole time you're like, it still could be there.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
People would just stand in front of it and cry before an IU football game on their walk. So that's helped a little bit. I think we finally have been around long enough to create a solid identity for ourselves. And it is an homage to IU, obviously, and IU athletics, and we lean into that. And we have someone running it now that I'm super excited about, Allison May, who is
married to
Jared.
I almost said her name earlier, and really has a very firm understanding of Bloomington and the community and what we're trying to be there. We're not trying to be a bar. We're truly trying to be someplace where everybody can come. If you're an IU fan, if you're not an IU fan, you still come. I mean, I love it when Michigan and Wisconsin and Iowa people show up and Purdue people too. I mean, they appreciate the fact that it really is all about IU in that building. Right. And then the space next to us came open, and we opened what we call the sidebar, which is just a little bit of everything, right? Like some really, really cool graffiti art and a pool table and darts and just a totally different vibe. I mean, it's almost like you walk into a different world, which is cool and unique to that. But I mean, there are people who said they would never come in that I've seen in lately, right? And I mean, it takes time.
Yeah,
that's good. I'm glad that.
I mean, it's still the best chicken finger in town.
So you took the words right out of my mouth. I was about to say. So my biggest thing when it happened was like the chicken tenders still have to be, and they are. My one gripe, and I texted Nathan about this at the time, was even though the recipe was straight from the Hawaiian Fire was never the same to me again.
Yeah.
Which I know it's off the menu now.
Yep.
RIP. But that was one where I was like, hey, but like, you could tell me it's straight from the recipe book, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
But the chicken tenders, you guys nailed it. Still have broccoli poppers too, I think.
Well, we're working on bringing. So I was going to say we're doing some menu work. Maybe we'll come up with a tropical fire. Maybe we'll have to get into
bring me in. Let's go.
Some consultation.
Yeah. Get the expert palate.
And so just during the pandemic, just kind of some supply chain issues. We don't currently have that broccoli popper, but we're working on bringing it back.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Just from, I mean, it's a unique product that we tried with a lot of effort to create it ourselves. It is a product we buy.
Yeah.
And just could not get it to come anywhere close, and finally just kind of gave up saying that, hey, at some point this will come back. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to come back. It'll be part of the menu this fall for sure. Broccoli poppers will.
Yeah.
And, I mean, the chicken tender is a labor of love. It's not just to take it out of the cooler or a freezer and fry it.
Right.
I mean, it's a buttermilk marinated for a day, 24 hours, and then it's hand breaded and fried, and we sell a ton of them.
Yeah, as you should. I mean, they're so good.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I was talking to my buddy Patty, who runs the Uplands, and a lot of people don't realize that Upland is essentially a scratch kitchen.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff at Social, at Tap, at Yogi. Like you guys are, you're planning ahead. You're marinating. You're hand breading. You're not just buying everything in bags and just cutting it open and portioning it out.
Yeah, I mean, we don't, as a company, probably. I mean, the amount of square footage we have in true freezer space is about, maybe a couple of these tables.
Yeah.
Between all 4 restaurants.
Whoa, wow.
So there's really nothing. Our new socials have a 2-door stand-up freezer.
And that's it.
That's it.
That's crazy. No walk-in freezer at all.
No. I mean, and Yogi's probably sells 75% of the frozen food that we sell, and it's we have 5 different French fries and some other stuff that we do at Yogi's that drive that, because everything gets fries at Yogi's. And really, if it wasn't for fries at the Tap, we wouldn't need a walk-in freezer. We could just we could handle upright freezers, which actually in Bloomington that's all we have because that's all the space allows. But
we got a few.
But yeah, it's something we don't talk about a lot. But I mean, at Social Cantina, 98% of the menu is fresh. I mean, literally every day. You don't keep it, you don't redo it, you make it every day.
Tossing it, coming in, prepping.
If it does last past a single day, it doesn't pass another half, right?
Right.
Like it's moving, and so. When you do that, it's a little bit of a labor of love, but it's also, you have a lot more control. And anything we do buy, one of the things I've always liked about us is that, say we buy something, you don't get what we bought, right? You get our version of what we bought. So we still take something that's like, that's a really good base. Like, what seasoning can we do, or how can we change it to make it very unique to us and have to not maybe do 100% of the work, right?
Yeah,
so,
well, you have to. There's a balance. You can't.
Yeah, 100%.
You can't. They're great to the people that can do just 100%. All like, I was watching this video the other day that's like, my husband said he wanted cookies, so I went out and harvested the sugar cane, and then she dried it and then ground it. I'm like, you got to draw the line at a certain
order from
point.
Crumble, right? At this point, or Insomnia, or baked here, right?
We got some
Locally,
good cookie options.
Baked is phenomenal, actually.
Yeah. I think Jeremy and Jason I've been talking to them forever. They carry our ice cream, and I think they're going to come on soon. So I'm excited for that.
You just trust Sadie, right? Like Sadie eats a dozen baked cookies a week, probably.
Yeah. We've never made a live phone call. We won't do it, but that'd be so much fun. Sadie, over under on 11 and a half.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was working there, I'd be doing 2 baker's dozens a week.
Every day.
Well, I mean, you have them out, you're taking pictures. It's like,
you can get a hot out of the oven cookie every single day.
God, dude, my friend, we are set up for Grand Falloon doing the shake-ups and the ice cream and all that. And my friend's daughter went and got cookies, and she brought them over. She's like, do you want? And they were just so soft and just falling apart.
The best cookie.
Speaking of fresh out of the oven, we saw a reel on Instagram where it was like people roasting donuts over a fire.
Yeah.
So we did that. I saw that. We got some Krispy Kremes.
I saw your post.
Put them on the marshmallow sticks, and they don't taste any different after you roast them over the fire, but they don't taste smoky or anything, but they just taste like they're fresh out of the oven.
Yeah.
and it's awesome.
Which is what a Krispy Kreme is supposed to be, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And
I mean, buy it down south.
I've got Krispy Kreme. I'm going to start going on my baked good. Let me tell you a thing about Krispy Kreme. No, Krispy Kreme and Cinnabon are one of those where it's just like, yeah, I've had some great donuts. I've had some great cinnamon rolls, but there's something about Krispy Kreme and Cinnabon that like, it's just hard to beat it. Yeah. There's nostalgia there, and they're just like, they've got them nailed.
I mean, I would tell you the only reason to go in the Circle Center was to smell Cinnabon.
Yeah.
Because it was the only Cinnabon in Indianapolis.
I used to get so excited when one of my siblings or something was going on a mission trip or going to the airport. I'm like, oh, we get Cinnabon? Like, we're going to the airport. I'm not worried about my sister leaving for 2 weeks. I'm getting a Cinnabon. That's the
great.
thing. Yeah.
They're not there anymore. They're not in the airport.
So here's where you go. The Flying J on Harding, just south of, they've got a Cinnabon stand in there. And they bake them fresh, and then they have them out. You can go all hours of the night. Grab a 4-pack.
On my drive home to Hamilton County tonight, I might have
You're welcome.
Go that direction.
Yeah. I'm expecting a photo. Normally I do the 4-pack. I get one for one of my buddies, one for another, and then 2 for me. That's how I got this figure.
Yeah. You and me both.
Yeah. I've held off on asking your entire backstory. We got into it a little bit, but you're living up north side of Indy now, but you're a Bloomington boy.
Yeah, born and raised out in Unionville towards Lake Lemon, and graduated from Bloomington North and went to IU. And my mom worked at IU forever. My father was in the automobile industry in Bloomington forever, and I wanted to be in the restaurant business. And part of it comes from my dad's sister, Aunt Sissy, made everything from scratch. Like, I don't think her entire life, and I think she lived into her 80s, she ever bought store-bought bread. I mean, she baked bread every day.
Wow.
So, and we got together as a family every day to eat, right? Like, I grew up in a dinner table family, and you went to grandma and grandpa's house on the weekend and potlucked it, right? That's what you did it's not once in a while.
Every single week.
Like, not when somebody died or somebody got married or it was some big birthday. You did it every single week, and you didn't have a choice. It wasn't like, hey, are you coming to grandpa's? It was like, I'll see you at grandpa's, right? And so food just was a big deal to me. Like, I don't really remember like frozen or canned vegetables growing up at all, because we always had a garden in the backyard. And like, I tell people that, and they're like, huh? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, I had canned goods, but because my grandmother would go pick them and can them.
Yeah.
Like corn and green beans and potatoes and all that stuff.
That's crazy.
Like, I did not grow up with frozen vegetables or vegetables in a can. It was out of the garden. And just an appreciation for that, and my personality, being a kind of outgoing guy, just lended to the restaurant business. So as soon as I turned 16, I got a job in the restaurant business in town it was called Dentimans. It was a fancy restaurant out in Westbury Village. It was probably one of the fancy restaurants. And
where's Westbury Village?
It's 446, sort of 46 going to Nashville, and 446 going to Lake Monroe in the little village or Century
Where
Village.
Chapman's was?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Well, Chapman, the same building, same spot where Chapman's was.
Okay, gotcha.
It was originally Dentimans, a family out of Terre Haute, and she hired me because I fed her a line about how I wanted to be a chef or anything like that, and so she made me the after brunch Sunday dishwasher, which I thought was great until the first day I showed up, and like no one had washed dishes from 7 a.m. and she has me come in at like 2.
Yeah,
I'm like,
what? Get to it.
Yeah. Well, we'll see at 4 when we start dinner, and then I was the salad guy, right? Like, but I didn't faze me. It was cool. I've got a job in a fancy restaurant, learned how to cook steak in that restaurant, and cooked out at the Point, and then this restaurant called Macris was showing up, and I walked in probably the very first day I was the first person they hired. So, and worked in the kitchen there for a couple years, and learned a lot. I mean, we were busy. The way we ran that kitchen was, if you ran the kitchen, you were reading handwritten tickets, and the thing had like 100 tables in it. I mean, the place was huge, and you figured it out, and you were the quarterback and coordinating, and just fell in love and finished school and went to work for Ruby Tuesdays, and moved to Detroit, Michigan to work for Ruby Tuesdays. Never had really lived anywhere but Unionville, Indiana. My entire 21, 22 years of my life, and went to Ruby Tuesdays, but it's the same thing. Like that kitchen at Macris made my trajectory in a chain restaurant like crazy. I think we had 46, 47 restaurants at the time. I left Ruby's when we had probably 250. That brand grew to 850.
Yeah. So what was when you left Macris, what was your position, and what was the position you accepted at Ruby Tuesdays?
I mean, I was probably the night kitchen supervisor at Macris.
Yeah.
Like I was the QB of the kitchen.
Yeah.
And felt like every single Friday, Saturday probably. And when I went to Ruby Tuesdays, I was a manager. Within a year, I was a GM for them. And
a kitchen manager?
Just a manager.
Okay,
yeah, you
cool.
just go, back in those days, Ruby's had 4 managers and everybody learned everything.
Okay,
like if you couldn't work the kitchen, you were
useless.
You were dead to me, right?
Yeah.
You were dish guy, and that wasn't very helpful. Very hands-on concept. I fit, right?
Yeah.
Like it's who I was. It's what I did. And ran a restaurant for him in Louisville, Kentucky. Ran a restaurant for him in Cincinnati. Dayton, Ohio is where I was at the longest, at Dayton Mall, which was just a crazy restaurant. You're talking about a restaurant that featured a $5.99 all-you-can-eat salad bar. And the check average was like $7. Ugh. And I was doing like 60 or 70 grand a week in Dayton, Ohio. I mean, we were just, you'd open on a weight and you'd close on a weight on some Saturdays.
Insane.
And then I opened a restaurant for him in Cleveland. It was the first freestanding Ruby Tuesdays ever up in Cleveland, Ohio, which was an experience for sure. And then worked for a couple other. I worked for an Applebee's franchisee for a little bit, and then I sort of just got into the steakhouse business. So originally I worked for Lone Star, back when Lone Star was the golden child of restaurant industry and the stock market. It was kind of Dave & Buster's, Cheesecake Factory, and Lone Star Steakhouse at the time. And
when are we talking?
Mid-90s.
Okay.
Mid-90s, yeah. And then opened a restaurant on where I-70 and I-75 intersect on the north side of Dayton, Ohio. And the thing just, blow you away type volume type deal. And a guy I worked for there went to work for a concept called Sega GameWorks, was like a Dave & Buster's type concept.
Okay.
And they didn't have food originally, and they said, hey, we're going to do food. So I went out west, actually moved to Phoenix, Arizona, got an apartment. I think I spent about 3 weeks over the course of a year in that apartment. I was in Dallas, Seattle, actually ran our restaurant in South Los Angeles, in the Inland Empire in Ontario, California. Right by Riverside, where Reggie Miller grew up. So that's always my perspective, is like, hey, Reggie, I drove once to see Reggie and Cheryl's high school, right? But these 60, 70,000 square foot facilities that had a restaurant, bar, and we did huge buyouts, huge catering events and things like that. And
I didn't realize there was a place like that before Dave & Buster's.
Yeah. Well, about the same time. It was after, but Sega Games was one of the founders, and then DreamWorks SKG. So Spielberg, Katzenberg, and David Geffen, through Spielberg's son's bar mitzvah, actually. So I have pictures of me playing video games with Steve, and pretty cool.
Sweet,
the Two Truths and a Lie game. That's always the one everyone's like, there's no way you've played a video game with Steven Spielberg. I was like, actually, here's my picture. So,
playing Papa Shot.
Pretty cool.
Who
and
won?
Came back east to grow it. So we opened a GameWorks in Detroit and Auburn Hills, and then one in Columbus, Ohio, and then one in Chicago, and then one down in Sawgrass and Fort Lauderdale, Florida, that I oversaw and opened those restaurants, those entertainment centers for them in a regional position. And just chaos time of my life, and went to work for Longhorn Steakhouse. And again, in Ohio, ran a restaurant for them in Cleveland, opened a restaurant for them in Erie, Pennsylvania, which gets the most snowfall of any American city yearly. And I was there for at that time, the record snowfall. Very happy to claim that.
How long were you stuck wherever you were when it happened?
What's crazy is you weren't stuck.
Really? They were just always so well prepared for it.
They knew how to dig out. And
it's just like when Atlanta gets
snow
a quarter
back in
inch.
Lake Erie. Yeah. It's, I think we got in that season, 87, 88 inches of snow that year.
So nuts.
People get 8 in Indiana and they're freaking out over the whole course of it. And then opened one of the first Longhorns in Indianapolis on Southport Road. worked there for a while, and then I got out of operations. I went to work for Logan's Roadhouse in a corporate recruiter role, management recruiter role.
Okay.
And over the course of the 8 years I worked for Logan's, we went from 103 restaurants to 235.
Wow.
And I was a part in some way, form, or fashion of every one of those openings, whether hiring or eventually training and and being a bigger part of that company, and can actually say I stood in all 235 Logan's Roadhouses at one point.
Dude, that's nuts.
All across the United States. So travel was a big part of it, and just really a lot of influence from people that I had worked with. And I left Logan's to come to work for Pat, actually. So spent about 2.5 years with Pat East at Hannafin Marketing. And
that kind of brought you home. That was kind of a homecoming.
Well, for working in Bloomington, I drove every day. I was living south side of Bloomington, and then really good friend of mine in the industry said, "Hey, I need your help. Will you come work for me?" And so I went to work for a concept called Old Chicago, which was owned by the same people who owned Rock Bottom and Gordon Biersch, and worked for Mike, my buddy, for about 1.5 years. Again, traveling. I had the entire United States. We had 90 restaurants in all four. We had a restaurant in all 4 time zones. Just chaos again. And somebody contacted me about a position, an HR position at Scotty's Brewhouse, and truly came home, went to work for Scotty's Brewhouse. Probably 2 or 3 months after I was there, we were going through the process of being sold because of where we were at. Got very close to the 2 or 3 companies that were looking at us, and the company that ended up buying us, the day they bought us, they made me the president of Scotty's Brewhouse. So, and did that for about 2.5 years, and then came to work for Nathan. So yeah, 40 years of the restaurant business all across the United States, and a lot of different brands, a lot of different people, and very blessed in the fact that if I got a problem, restaurant problem, I got somebody, I call somebody. And a lot of different perspectives, a lot of friends of mine in high places. I've got a lot of buddies. One of my good friends is the president of Edley's Barbecue down in Nashville, Tennessee, as an example. That's a 15-unit barbecue joint. And just, this business is really, really cool. And those of us who do it forever just end up having a lot of friends, a lot of stories. I mean, the storyteller for sure from stories and things that I've seen and done. But, it's been really cool. Right. And so it's what I'll always do. I'll really have never done anything other than the restaurant business. I mean, I did work for Pat for 2.5 years, but to be honest with you, I just brought that hospitality, that cultural piece, that people focus to Hannafin, and scientifically, Pat and I figured out kind of who to hire, right, in a very complex business, and a lot of it was just predicated on, what do they want to do and whatnot. We still do that. I mean, people's why I do this. I have phenomenal people now. I've again, the relationships I've forged over the last 40 years across the United States are I would do anything to do it again, right?
Yeah.
To have those friendships and those relationships.
I mean, it's all about who you know. I literally told that to one of my friend's kids yesterday. We're like, hey, if there's one thing, don't listen to me about anything, but there's one thing I ever tell you, it's all about who you know.
I was coming here and I got stopped 4 times by somebody who was yelling at me, right? Like somebody at the alley, somebody at Crazy Horse. I was like, I got to go. I
got a thing to do.
I'm going to be late. And
I love when I go out with people, or like I'll have my little sister come down from Carmel or something. And she actually used to manage Scotty's on 146 for a little, or was one of the managers.
Oh, yeah, great.
Yeah,
in Noblesville? Hazeldale?
Yeah,
146 in Hazeldale.
146 in Hazeldale, yeah. The Bloomington Town Planner is a community calendar owned and published by local residents John and Sharon Martin. Mailed out to Bloomington homes in December of each year, it features school schedules and community events. And don't forget the coupons at the bottom of the calendar. They'll save you money and help you decide on the next restaurant or retailer to check out here in the Bloomington area. Town Planner also has an online calendar which will be found at townplanner.com. Make sure to sign up for their weekly e-newsletter so you can stay on top of all the fun events going on around town. But whenever, they'll just be like, man, dude, everywhere we go, just what's that? I mean, you live somewhere long enough, and it sounds like your scope's a little wide. Mine is just in Bloomington, but that's awesome. What an incredible career. I mean, I've known you some, but I had no idea the depths and just all those different places. You mentioned the growth in the time you were there with Hannafin, with Lone Star. That's so cool to have all that to lean on, your experience to lean on, and all these resources to where I'm sure there's nothing you come across now that there's not someone that can give you. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I think the cool thing is I'm not afraid of very much, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that if I don't know it, I do know someone who does, or that I can call, or that we can have a conversation, or we can go do some research with for sure. But yeah, I mean, I think the other thing is I think a lot as the world has evolved, right? Like the way I learned the restaurant business was all about hospitality. That's definitely something that Nathan and I immediately connected on, right? Like that $100 bill and I can't get waited on in Indianapolis or, in Bloomington. That's unacceptable, right? Like they shouldn't need a $100 bill. They walk into your business, they've already given you a gift, right? The opportunity to take care of them. And so hospitality is a huge piece of who I am. Like I love to throw the party. I love talking to tables. I love talking to guests. I love talking to the team members that we have. And I love a city like Bloomington because I see team members work for us for a couple of years and graduate and then go on to cool jobs. And just one of our former team members got married 2 Saturdays ago, and their wedding rehearsal dinner was at the Tap in Indianapolis. And 4 or 5 people who showed up for that dinner were former Tap Bloomington employees, and Shay had worked at Social Cantina and SmokeWorks. So that's a very fulfilling, rewarding thing to have people be what defines your career, right? And that's if you ask me, hey, what really defines it? Yeah, I've worked for cool brands. I have opened a crap ton of restaurants, like more than anyone I know, really.
Yeah.
And people are blown away and been involved in a lot of them, but it's really just the people. The people are cool.
Yeah.
And it's like going to Detroit. Detroit's an awesome city. Everyone should go to Detroit and experience the food culture there. Like you and I at lunch the other day, we're talking about the food culture in Bloomington. That's one of the reasons I love it too, is that the cultural piece behind food and the family behind food, right? Like where do those recipes come from? Where does that practice come from? Comes from a family, comes from some place that is very important to someone, right? It's very emotional. It's a very strong attachment. But I like our team in Bloomington, a lot of our recipes, a lot of our stuff at Social Cantina is an example. Like we're struggling with something. We finally just like ask the staff, will somebody call their mom, and figure out how to do this, right? And or their grandmother or whatever, and it gets solved. It's like we should have just done that to begin with, right? We knew we had a resource here. We just needed to do it. And that's again, hospitality is part of our moniker at Finney. It's Finney Hospitality Group, and that hospitality is the thing I hope that in my legacy when I'm done and my role at this company is done, that people are like, hey man, the hospitality of those people was second to none.
That's definitely, that's a great thing to aspire for. And I always learn so much when we do these. I'm always like, I come out of every time we record a podcast, there's something that I'm like reinvigorated about.
Yeah.
That I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to take that back, use that to Moose, where I'm just like, yeah, we need to go. Like we obviously have a focus on hospitality, but I was like, maybe I need to make that more of the focus.
Sure.
And then just like you said, just the best part about the Bloomington aspect is, it's all these students and they're so talented and they're going on to do cool things. And then, going to their weddings years later and just watching what they achieve in their personal career, which it's like they're younger. They're already lapping me, 3-4 years out of college. 100%. I'm just like, good job. Yep. I'm just here to help be a little stepping stone, while you had a part-time job through all the crazy stuff that you were doing.
And it's Audrey and I were at the Tap during graduation weekend and somebody came up and said hi to me. And it was probably one of my all-time favorite team members at the Tap Bloomington while I've been here. And his little brother was graduating from IU, and he had graduated from IU before and was just a great team, part of our team. And it was just, that's a rewarding thing that, hey, that kid would get up from his table and come say hi to me and Audrey and want to, right? Like, hey,
absolutely.
I want to say hey to you. And we've been, traveling somewhere. I think we were down in, Tampa or Miami, I can't remember, and across the airport, somebody yelled, hey, Uncle Yogi, because Yogi's, during coming out of the pandemic, we do breakfast club Saturdays, and I would try to give every single person who walked in the door something, a hat or sunglasses or a keychain or something from one of the vendors to make sure everyone got something when they left or whatever. And they all just called me Uncle Yogi, which was crazy.
So can I call you that now?
Yeah, 100%.
Sure,
yeah,
awesome.
but in some random, thousands of people in an airport, somebody sees you and they yell at you and they attach it to what you do for a living. It's pretty rewarding.
One of the things I haven't forgot about that I wanted to touch on of your whole history you went through is I always have heard about Macris and how lovingly it's talked about. I never got to experience the old Macris. I got to experience the new Macris. I know what the new Macris menu was. I know that the cheese sticks were legendary and Big Cheese had them. And what was the old Macris? What is it that make people remember it so fondly?
Yeah, I mean, you and I talked about this a little bit at lunch and you didn't even know, but I mean, Macris spawns from Mishawaka, South Bend. And so Jeff Badalich, who brought it to Bloomington, played hockey at Notre Dame. And I think he was from somewhere up in the region or somewhere from Michigan. Now that I say that, I think he was from Minnesota, but so I was totally off. But during his time at Notre Dame, him and his family fell in love with Macris Deli. So it was a traditional deli, but they had a bakery and they made cheesecake. So one of the things about the original Macris is we had a cheesecake of the day. And we had 50 or 60 varieties of cheesecake that we would rotate through. Oh. So you always had a regular cheesecake.
Cheesecake's my favorite dessert, bar none.
So the original Macris, that was a mainstay, like, Macris Deli cheesecake. And then we baked our own bread every day, which was a huge process because everything went on these huge hoagie rolls, right? But we did it every day. And, there were, it had a little bit of everything, right? Like I said, it had really good sandwiches. We did gyros, we did Phillies. We made our own soups. I remember the process. We were trying to make our own French onion soup and trying to figure out how to not have it be too salty. And so unsalted butter and, as much brandy and all kinds of stuff you could possibly put in it if it made it into it. And, and big beers, big 32-ounce mugs of beer and TVs everywhere. And it was built, with picnic tables in the main dining room and then these booths. I mean, we had 2 booths that could seat 50 people. I mean, they were, the big thing in the old spot used to be Duff's Smorgasbord is what it was. So it was an old big buffet smorgasbord bill. So I
want to bring back the Smorgasbord name.
We should.
Yeah. It's very underused, but I use it anytime.
It's not used at all anymore.
No, well, that's true in actual restaurants. But anytime I get a ton of food, that's what I'm calling
smorgasbord.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's the only appropriate way to sum up. Oh, here's what I got going on. Yeah. Like I'm about to mess up my life right now with this one meal.
So I think Macris was there. There were things that it evolved, to be really, but like we didn't do French fries when we opened, we didn't even have cheese sticks. Like that wasn't really part of what we did in the first couple years. It was potato chips and these big sandwiches and fast, 8 to 10 minutes to get out of the kitchen. And you were going to drink a couple big beers and family friendly. And again, it wasn't, the location out on the east side by Kroger wasn't perfectly conducive to students, but it was a huge IU following. And I think, Jeff really fell in love with Bloomington. That I think is a huge part of it too, that he just wanted to have his restaurant be very successful. And it obviously was hugely successful. I mean, I don't know how, 20 years at least it was in existence at its original location. And to me, I think though, it was, again, I think we just took care of people. It was, people got really good service.
All comes back to the hospitality.
And, it was big. At the time, it was probably the largest restaurant. Nick's, it's like Nick's is today, only just in one great big room. And we just, a bunch of college kids just busting our hump to make $1, right? To pay rent or gas in the car or whatever. And I will tell you, probably when we opened, it was probably one of the best teams of people I've ever worked with, probably just because I remember it because of how crazy it was.
Yeah.
Because it was really the first opening I ever did. And 200 later or 300 later or whatever it is, like that still is like one of my favorite experiences.
It just stands out the most.
Yeah.
Because it was your first, because of the team, you're also where you're from.
Yep. And Jeff being an athlete, like I growing up was an athlete, but that competitiveness of Jeff wasn't a stand up in front of you guy being the captain of a team type guy. But when it was busy and things were happening, Jeff was heavily involved and really pushing the thing to have it and have it be successful. So it was cool. And I can't believe someone hasn't tried to replicate it the real way. Right.
Right. Yeah. Really, really try.
And I can't believe it didn't grow. Like, basically there was one Macris Deli in Bloomington, Indiana, and that was it.
Yeah. It just had its
and it has a cult following. I mean,
we're here how many years later talking about it still?
Right? And there was two iterations after it, sort of, right? So
yeah, well, I know of the one at the old train station there at 7th and Morton.
Right.
I don't know, was there another one too?
Well, I'm lost for his name. Who reopened Opie Taylor's there on the square.
Yeah, I'm blanking on that too.
And so he was he worked at the original Macris as well.
Okay.
And so
we need to do a reunion of all you guys.
That would be interesting. We'll see how many of us are still around.
Well, this could easily be a 2-parter. I've got easily another hour and a half of stuff that I want to pick your brain on.
Yeah.
So we might make that happen. But before I've got 2 last things I want to get in on part 1.
Okay.
Well, we haven't talked. I want to talk about some of your favorite places in town. We've talked about some of the history. You know, we've talked about your 4 locations within Bloomington,
right,
with Finney Hospitality Group. What are some of the other places in town that you enjoy within Bloomington?
Again, I think if it's on 4th Street, it deserves a nod just to exist on 4th Street.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there's really some really cool, unique flavors. I'm not really going to call any of them out on 4th Street, but I would just tell people, like, if you are just a little bit daring, right, and willing to try different flavors of what you might have a preconceived notion of what it's going to taste like, and try some stuff in those restaurants. I mean, there's some people who really do some cool things, right? And then I think, I think Michael's in Uptown does a great job. I love the bar atmosphere, right? I love the fact that there are things he's done forever, but if you hit it on a late spring day, you're going to have fried morel mushrooms as an appetizer, right? And and it's something that no way fits the concept of what he wanted to be, but he just fell in love with them probably by eating them here.
Well, they nail hospitality.
Yeah,
they nail it.
Very, very good. And I'm a glutton for a Strom at Nick's for sure. Anytime. I mean, I think I love Lenny's as well, and I think
speaking of good bread,
I think
with Macris and like that bread that they do the original on with the roast.
Bedrick Cafe, if you're going for breakfast, is my favorite. And,
nice, yeah.
And
give Letty and Matt some love.
Well, Matt worked at Scotty's forever.
Didn't even think about that. Yeah,
for 14 or 15 years, and had been an hourly person, and I think I actually made him a salaried manager. And they're in the tap a lot. I always love seeing them on their day off. Their day off, right? They run a restaurant. You know what they do on their day off? They go and patronize a bunch of fellow restaurants.
That's how all this started.
It's
because I've always worked in restaurants, and I would like to go into other restaurants and see what they're doing and be part of that community.
Yeah.
What do you see? They're opening up a bar on their backside.
Yep.
The Worthy Pint.
Worthy Pint.
Yeah. So that's very exciting.
They are huge craft beer.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Beer folks, which is cool. I think it'll be fun to see kind of how that evolves with what they want to do, and I'm very excited to see what kind of food Matt kind of throws out on that table.
Oh yeah, sure. Dude, I hadn't even thought about that. About him getting to spread his wings a little bit and do maybe go back to his Scotty's roots as far as more like pub grub.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he does some a really kick-ass burger, right?
A Newman burger
and doing something a Schumann.
I know. I was trying to.
Yeah. A Schumann burger.
Schumann. Yeah, I think Scotty's was the first place I ever heard of peanut butter on a burger.
And, it was they ran a burger contest with team members, and that was a team members
was it really?
Menu item. You got to make it with Jif peanut butter. You have to saute the jalapenos. Her last name was Schumann. Her last name was Schumann. But I mean, when you eat it, it's a Asian flavor profile, right? If it's made right. In a hamburger, and it's like, are you kidding? I mean, people tell you about it, and you're like, I'm not going to eat that, and you eat it, and you're like, oh my god, this is good.
Yeah,
put anything on a hamburger, and it'll work out. I believe.
Yeah, well, that's funny. I was actually one of the things I forgot to mention was like my thing was it's all about who you know. After all your years, what's your advice? If you had one tidbit to parcel out, but it's we can just put anything on a burger, it'll work out.
That's that could be my tagline. Actually, I don't think we would be wrong. Right?
Yeah. But I guess I'll give you a real opportunity.
Serve it with potatoes.
Yeah. Yeah. Put it on your burger to work out, serve with potatoes. Bing, bang, boom.
Everybody's happy.
Yeah. It's not hard.
Nope. That's right.
The last thing I wanted to chat with you guys about, or at least highlight, was the social logger and what you guys are doing with that.
Yeah, great. I appreciate it. Our founder, Nathan Finney, tragically passed away in November. And it's ironic in the fact that during those last few months that Nathan and I spent a lot of time together, we were talking and he was really driving a conversation about, figuring out a way that we could really leave a legacy, and that he in this industry could leave a legacy, and that our people who work for us didn't just work for us without really a point, right? That they were going to try to do something that could leave a legacy. And we had talked a lot, and Jared and he had talked a lot about, a compassion beer. So let's brew a beer and let's take some of the funds from that beer and give it to local charities or somebody in need, whatever it was going to be. There were a lot of ideas being thrown out there about how to do things or what to do. Some easier to execute the other. And so in January, we did a compassion beer, with Tapinator, which was one of the regularly occurring beers that Jared does. It's not always on the menu, but once a year it rears its beautiful frothiness and in a glass, and you can drink it. And so we gave part of that beer to Big Brothers Big Sisters in Central Indiana, South Central Indiana. I think that's what it is. I want to say it right. Big Brothers Big Sisters of South Central Indiana. Yep. And went great. The response from them was really good. Like I thought I knew what Big Brothers Big Sisters was. I had no clue, you know what I mean, about what it really is about and what it means to be a little, and what, even more importantly, maybe what it means to be a big. Yeah. Matter of fact, from how I understand it and from people that I've met since we did that earlier this year, it may be as much about helping the big as it is helping the little, which I love. That probably endeared me to them more than anything. And so we've been working behind the scenes really to come up with a way of like how we would be comfortable to really do this long term, and to do it so that we consistently left a legacy and helped really leave a very positive impact with Nathan's name in the communities that we have businesses, right? So not just Bloomington, but Indianapolis and Carmel and West Lafayette and Mishawaka and soon to be Nashville, Tennessee. And in Columbus, Indiana, we're already doing it. So that he was born and raised in Bedford. I'm born and raised in Bloomington. We're two Southern Indiana guys. We know everybody. We're friendly people, and community and family mean a heck of a lot to us. So we knew we were just going to give a portion of the beer of a beer sales to a local community on a quarterly basis. That was pretty easy. Do we have Jared create a beer every single time, or do we just do it? And at the end, we decided we were going to do social lager. And there's a couple reasons. One, it's the number one selling beer we have, which when I tell people that, sometimes they look at me like, why would you give part of your profit from your number one selling beer? It's like, because it's going to make an impact. Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah. People are going to notice it. Those aren't going to be $50 checks.
Yeah, you don't want some obscure beer. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, $50. They're going to be something that's going to make a difference in a lot of people's life. And it was Nathan's favorite tap beer. So it means a lot to me and our team, and certainly his family, that we're going to do something to properly honor him in every community for as long as I'm here, which hopefully is a really long time. And then we're also going to create and have created a sort of a team member relief fund. So part of the proceeds of that beer, every time we sell a social, will also go into that fund. Team members can also put money into it. And when we have a team member that's all part of our team that has something happen to them that requires financial support, that we as a family can support them. And again, having seen this in other companies, it can run the gambit, right? Like just crazy things happen to people. Houses burn down, a loved one is very ill and they don't have the money to get a plane ticket to wherever that city is. And we'll be able to do that for people who work for us. And again, the ability to leave a legacy on the team, because I think it was, as we got deeper into this, and certainly as Nathan and I spent more time together, you know, how important the team was to us being able to do what we were doing. Because we've already done a lot, and we're going to do a whole bunch more, and we were going to do some crazy growth, right? The conversation always came back to, you know, do we have the right team? Do we have enough team? What are we going to do to grow the team? It was all about the team, right? So there's going to be a lot of people who come in the future to work for Finney Hospitality Group that are never going to have that chance to get to know Nathan Finney. And so I take it as my responsibility to make sure that they'll somehow understand who he was and how important they are to the company that he's left us to steward moving forward. In the fact that if one of them ever needs something, they'll be able to ask us, which really they're going to be asking Nathan through me, hey, can you help me? Cause I need help. And we're going to be able to say yes.
Wow. That's, yeah, that's great. I love that you guys are doing that. I mean, I've got, you know, we talked already before, but just so much respect for, I'm sure what you've had to go through on the business side and on the personal. As just a friend. You know, I knew Nathan for many years, just such an awesome dude. And to see you guys just plowing ahead with kind of what he wanted to see, what, you know, is awesome. And obviously hearts go out to Audrey and the 2 kids as well. But yeah, man. Well, keep it up.
Thanks.
Really cool work that you guys are doing. And I appreciate you taking the time, come share all the amazing stuff going on with Finney Hospitality Group, and that you guys are still a big part of the Bloomington community.
Yeah, we're not going anywhere, and we're gonna, you know, continue to grow. And we had a very good example of what to do every day, right? Like get up, get focused, be positive, and get after it, and get shit done. And that's part of our sort of, you know, agreement to each other that we're going to do that. And I'm blessed with the opportunity. So, and I'm very appreciative of spending some time just having a conversation with you.
Yeah, really enjoyed it, man.
Yep,
yeah, you guys heard it. Get shit done. Cheers,
guys.
man.
Yeah.
Thanks. This episode of the No Dishes Podcast was recorded, edited, and produced by Garrett Portinga of Green Hat Media in beautiful downtown Bloomington, Indiana.
No dishes.
No Dishes Media.
No Dishes Media.